Hi, Anthony. So this is Benson. I met you at the Polyglot Gathering in May
Right.
in Berlin. So we were in the table talking about memorizing some phrases from
Right.
Indonesian challenge.
Yes.
Yes. So recently I've been thinking about two things. One of them is to start a podcast on general language learning, and the second thing is a podcast on building meaningful relationships, and that is to deepen relationship that can have the potential to foster. For example, like a few of the lovely people that I met, including yourself, at the Polyglot Gathering. It would just be very nice to sort of have a catch-up call every now and then, every couple of months, and then to go to events together. So I'm trying out different templates to sort of when we think of someone to meet, and then I sort of said just trying an experiment to rekindle past relationships or to strengthen current one. So for someone in the city, that would be just to grab a coffee, and then for someone in the different cities, for example, the online community, we can sort of have a hangout call like this. So yeah, I feel that it's something that's quite dear to my heart, because we all sort of want to deepen our relationship with people around us. So it's just sort of something that I'm quite excited to do. And then you are one of the lucky first that I'm talking to in my brand new project.
Oh, very cool. Thank you for thinking about me.
Yeah, great. So how have you been since the Polyglot Gathering?
Oh, very well. I've been all over the place since then, traveling around and having lots and lots of fun.
Great. And then we were in the At Once Challenge together. I think you have not been that active since the first few weeks.
That's right. I actually removed myself from active participation because I made an interesting discovery that I didn't expect was going to happen, which is this. I was having no fun with French at all.
Oh.
And so I just went back to working on Spanish because I just was having fun with Spanish, but I wasn't going to I didn't need a challenge to work on Spanish as such because I just love it, right? But it was driving me crazy trying to force myself to do French when it was just a miserable experience for me, partly having to do with my childhood and so forth, and partly because there was a bit of confusion trying to do Spanish at the same time, I must admit, even with memory stuff going on. But at the end of the day, I just wasn't enjoying it at all. Now, that said, I enjoy reading French and rocket science, but speaking French was not at all interesting. Also, in all due fairness to the project, I didn't find speaking with people who are also learning the language at the same time particularly helpful.
Okay.
So it reminded me a lot of when I was in Berlin doing a German course with people who, were also learning German at the same time. And well, in any case, I don't mean to criticize it. I obviously lots of people were having fun with it, but to me, I was just kind of like in my Spanish practice, I just have a speaking partner. No formal lesson as such. I do all the training on the lesson-based stuff on my own, but then we just talk. But I'm speaking with a native speaker, and to have 4 or 5 non-native speakers struggling with one another, it's just not my learning style, basically.
Okay. So yeah, I remember you were doing a spreadsheet of mnemonics for some of the basic questions, and then in the first couple of weeks, and then I didn't see you participate anymore. I think was that sort of it?
Yeah, and I just ultimately it just comes down to not having fun. I wonder what would have happened if I switched to Spanish inside of that, and I'll probably do another one just to see. But it's a fascinating thing. How did you find it?
So I did 2 challenges. The first was Korean, and then during the beginning of the year, January to April, something like that this year, and then A1C8. The challenge number 8 was June, wasn't it? June to August, so 3 months. And then the first one I did Korean, the second one I did Polish. And the Korean, I actually, in a way, I had a similar experience to you, because I just felt that knowing Japanese, learning Korean would be sort of like an easy thing to add to. But then I realized that actually the Korean grammar and pronunciation is just much more difficult, and I just didn't have so much passion for the language itself. However, being in the community did give me some social and, in a way, artificial motivation to carry on learning it, just to sort of see it through to the end. And so, yeah, I'm glad that I'm sort of made a start on it. I don't see motivation to practice that much for the last few months. Hence, I decided to switch to Polish. That I learned a few back in the year 2000. So then, yeah, I think I made much better progress in Polish than in Korean. But I feel that maybe at the end, I think it's 2 factors. One is the second challenge, so that I sort of learn how to do the challenge. The challenge is also to learn how to do the challenge well. So we can also get better. So that's one thing. The second thing is I think the intrinsic motivation is also quite important. If I genuinely am more curious about the language and the culture and all the people, then we are more likely to sort of stick with it. So I think something interesting that I have learned, because most of my social interactions, most of my interactions with the online Facebook community is the people who are sort of really into in the @ONE challenge. So it's quite nice to sort of see what people didn't find it so useful, or what people didn't find it the best method for them.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I visited Ollie Richards, who I'm sure you know, in Cairo, and we were talking about, he was asking me, like, what's the number one problem, or maybe whatever. We got around to, like, what's the number one problem that I, as a person learning languages, faces, and I've faced it since the beginning when I first started with Biblical Hebrew and things like that for my PhD. And it's just that I'm too introverted for these group things. I really just don't leap into group things, whether it's online or not. I just kind of sit back and so that's kind of a challenge. How do you effectively do group language learning when you're primarily introverted, as opposed to being out there and active and feeling like you have inherent interest in discussing as such? You know what I mean? It's not just that it's an intrinsic interest in the language, but it's also an intrinsic interest in being social. I went with Luca and David to a speaking event here in Berlin, and they're just, they're so social and outgoing. They're at every table, blah 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 blah, like talking to all these people, and I'm just looking around at this art gallery at banana statues and stuff like this, because I just don't have that outgoing motivation to start speaking to people. So, but I get online with my speaking partner, who I like very much in Spanish in the current concentration, and we have a great time. Somehow we clicked. It took me 3 or 4 Spanish speaking partners before I found someone where there's something to say. You know what I mean? So, and maybe because he's also an entrepreneur and he's really interested in how I run my business and so on. So, yeah, it's cool.
So yeah, in terms of introversion, I think I do listen to most of your podcasts, and I do rather enjoy them. But then, yeah, it's a very huge backlog, so I'm still going through it. I think that in one of the I don't remember the source anymore. Was it either from one of your podcasts or from another podcast where you talk about the introversion thing, and then it's something that resonates with me as well. I also consider myself an introvert, so personally, I really enjoy talking to you like this one-to-one much more than in a huge social group with a lot of people. So, so in a way, sort of my template to invite people to reconnect with people that they have met before in events or at school or at uni is sort of maybe in a way to cater to people who are more introverted. So I hope that this recording, this podcast video, YouTube video, whichever form you get it, will also inspire people to connect with other people. For me, I was thinking, how can I get the benefit of the Polyglot conference without actually going to it? And then I was like, hey, I've got 50 of these people that I really want to meet anyway. Why do I need to pay $500 or $1,000 but buy it now? So I can just send them a message, and if they are interested in reconnecting with me, they will reconnect with me just like you are right now. So and then it's just even as rich or even richer than an experience in the Polyglot conference and the Polyglot gathering. But obviously, I still really love it, and I still want to go next year. But
yeah, I hope you'll be able to come.
Yeah. Do you sort of share a similar feeling that you maybe just being able to reconnect like this in a small group or one-to-one like this, like we're doing right now, can be as rich an experience, or can be a very rich experience compared to going to a huge event where for introverts like us it can be quite draining.
Yeah. I mean, I talk to Ollie quite a bit on Skype and so forth, and to tell you the truth, there's something really great about talking on Skype, at least for me, is I just I turn my screen off, and then I just am totally present. In this case, I don't have my screen off because we're looking at each other, but normally I just turn my screen off and just be there. Whereas in person, you know, whoever it is, they're looking at their smartphone, and you're not, even in person, you're not in person anymore. So somehow Skype or this Google Talk seems way more focused and concentrated than even real life in many cases. But yeah, I like, not only do I like talking to people individually online, but I like talking to them and then meeting them later.
Yeah, definitely. So Berlin is very close to Paris, and Paris is very close to Berlin, and we can sort of even start. I was thinking it would be super nice to have a Polyglot Gathering X, just like that is TEDx for TED. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Informally, I forgot the term, informally organized Polyglot gathering. It would be quite nice. Well, I think it would be a different, it would be a bit different to Polyglot Club, which is sort of just language exchange. But obviously, the language, the Polyglot Conference and the Polyglot Gathering is more about meta language learning, sort of how to learn language itself. So it's sort of a bit different. So yeah, maybe for those of you listening and for those of you watching or in whatever format, then if you are inspired to do some sort of Polyglot Gathering X, Polyglot Conference X, then somehow contact us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be very happy to organize something in Paris, and you, I suppose, you may be very happy to organize it in Berlin too. Well, I'm putting you on the spot here, but
No, I'm going to Paris. I'm always looking for an excuse to go to Paris.
So yeah, so the funny thing is I've also been in contact with Ollie. Well, not so much Skype, but then we've been sort of doing Facebook. We have exchanged a few Facebook messages and sort of about Cantonese and about various other things. And then I actually feel a strong connection to you two, because both of you two have explicitly said that both of you two are introverted. So I think in a way it can also be a socially binding thing, just to sort of go with it, but then also just be open that we are introverted, we prefer specific modes of interaction, and then it can also draw people to you in a way.
Yeah, I think too it's important actually to point out that being introverted doesn't mean not wanting to be around groups of people or going to group events. I like it just fine, but having these large discussions with all kinds of things going on is just not the kind of person to just interject, and how some people are just very into that sort of thing where they just go in. But I like group things a lot, and group dynamics are very interesting to be part of and to study and to enjoy.
So on the topic of sort of relationship building, be it with socially, with a family, or in our love life, and on language learning, I have got a few questions in mind, just to guide this conversation. But then, do you have anything on mind about these two topics before I sort of just guide this conversation with those questions, or just anything that pops to your mind when I say this, when I say on the topic of relationship building and on the topic of language learning?
Well, I would say that may be interesting to you is that I wrote my dissertation on friendship, so it's something that's been on my mind for many years, and
I'm interviewing an expert for this information. So my new podcast that I just started, a Podbean page a few days ago, is called Project Meaningful Relationship. So yeah, sort of explore relationship with ourselves, with socially, in terms of our friends and with our spouses. So yeah, I think I'll be able to get some wisdom from you. So what are you inspired to speak about in terms of friendship? I mean, sort of maybe some of the ideas that you had from that you shared in your dissertation, and maybe how they have changed over the last few years.
Well, I think that friendship is the most important thing in the world. And one of the reasons why is because it connects to memory, right? Friendship is memory, and memory is the basis upon which friendship happens. And I mean, literally, if you don't recognize your friend, then you don't have a friendship, you know? If one person gets hit by a stone on their head and they no longer have the ability to recognize their friend who has gone unharmed may recognize the person that was formerly their friend, but that person no longer recognizes them. So the nature of the friendship has changed, and there's something that I landed on I don't know, you have to guide me a little bit because I can go all over the place with things.
You finish your train of thought and then I'll sort of have a guide.
Well, because what I discovered or landed upon, or what my basic conclusion was, and I think still is, about friendship, is that friendship is based on what I called hypothetical consent. And hypothetical consent means that you are my friend because I assume that you are the one person with whom I can be who I am, right? And I can tell you the thing that I most need to tell you when I need to tell it to you, right? And because I can assume that, you are my friend. So it's kind of a tautology, a circular logic. And so it's hypothetical consent, because just because I assume hypothetically that you're my friend does not mean that you have that same feeling back. So there's these plateaus, let's call them, of friendship, where we often are misaligned with each other, because I will hypothetically assume consent from you that you have not agreed to, and you may hypothetically assume consent that I haven't agreed to. And ideally, at the highest level of friendship, you don't have to assume anything. It's just completely granted and accepted. But that's not reality. Reality is never that way. There is no ideal. Aristotle would have said, or did say, that the ideal friendship, the virtuous friendship, is the friend who is able to show you the path, who actually makes sacrifice of him or herself in order to bring the friend to a higher place, right? And this is all a level higher than a friendship based on pleasure, a friendship based on utility, and so forth. But even then, there's a hypothetical consent that the thing that I would want to do, if I saw you at a certain plateau of life, and I wanted you to bring you up to a higher plateau, I would have to assume your consent in order to do that, right? So, like, in other words, it's like saying, I know what's better, I know what's right for you better than you know yourself, sort of thing. And that's what we do in friendships a lot of the time. And we manipulate each other, we influence each other, and in friendships we assume the consent that it's okay to do that. So
if I understood you, because it's quite a deep topic.
It's probably deeper than it needs to be, but that's what they call it, a dissertation.
You formulate it in a quite abstract way. I think I'll probably have to listen to it again. But then, if I understood you, so it's sort of, in two words, it's about assumption and consent. Assumption of the relationship in a particular way, and then the other person consenting to this assumption. Is that sort of somewhat similar to what you said, or am I completely missed the point?
I'm trying to think of an example. I mean, a good example would be to watch the TV show Friends. Mm-hmm. Friends is completely, entirely, 100% grounded upon hypothetical consent. So, I don't know, Ross or somebody will be friends with Chandler, and because they're such close friends, he will assume that Chandler would consent to him borrowing his book, or, you know, something that has a bit of stakes to it. So he borrows, like, his statue of the Buddha or something like this, and he assumes that that would be okay because not only are they're friends, but they're roommates, and friends are okay with that kind of stuff. But for whatever reason, let's say Chandler has placed that Buddha statue facing southeast on Tuesday, the 23rd of May, because he has some kind of process set in place that is going to prevent nuclear war or whatever, right? And he has not given consent to Ross in order to even look at the Buddha statue, let alone move it, right? And so it creates all kinds of disaster. And so we do these kinds of things to each other all the time. I mean, my roommate recently borrowed something from me, that's why I'm thinking of this, and it's cool and everything, but he lost the electricity cable, and then he thought, oh, it'd be okay, I just give you this different electricity cable. But then the different electricity cable wrecked my rice cooker, right? So he's assuming that he has my consent to borrow my thing because we've been friends for years before we became roommates. But and he would only have my consent to the extent that he would have asked me if he could have used it. And then if he would have asked me if he could have used it, then I would have said, yeah, okay, no problem. But he didn't ask me, then he lost the thing, and then instead of saying, oh, well, I borrowed it and I lost it, he said, oh, well, here, just take this other one. I mean, you know, like, it's just that kind of thing. And so now the friendship is actually harmed, and now I just think, oh man, I gotta move because that's just like, that's so not cool, right? And I mean, that's just like a more dramatic example of things that we do all the time. Like if you were telling me something that you had a problem about a girlfriend or something, and I'm just like, man, you're like this all the time with your girlfriends. Just get rid of her, you know? Just, you know, I'm assuming that I have your consent to speak briskly with you or brusquely because we're friends. And that could actually hurt you very, very badly precisely because we are friends. That's the moment that I should actually not hypothetically assume that you need someone to smack some reality into you, that actually it's quite the opposite. So I don't know if that's making it any clearer, but the whole point is that when we act with our friends,
It just
we assume that we have the permission or the right to do things that we would never do to strangers, basically. We would never make the assumption that it would be okay to borrow a stranger's car, you know. And then if we returned it with a big scratch on it, it wouldn't be okay to say, "Oh well, sorry, I didn't ask to borrow your car." You know, that's called theft, right? But somehow we assume it's okay when it's our friends.
Okay. I thought that was quite weird because I've also thought about this topic a lot, and I've come up with several theories. They sort of now, after hearing this friend's example, now I actually get it. To me, I've been thinking about it for the last couple of years as shifting social protocol. We sort of have a certain protocol when we interact with people who are not our friends, and then with our close friends, and then with our not so close friends, and then with our very close friends. So then the protocol, there is a lot of in my mind. I think it's exactly what you said, but then maybe you can sort of because you did a PhD on it, so you are more expert, and then you can correct my train of thought. Is sort of at first we have many sort of social protocol that we have to respect in a society, especially. Well, I don't know. I'm only familiar with the social protocol in London and most European cities and Asia in terms of Macau and Japan, where I've spent a lot of the time. So then that a set of rules that we have to obey to people that we are not so close to, and then as our friendship deepens, then those protocol can be ignored one by one. Is that another way to formulate what you said, or is that missing the point?
No, I think that's along the right tracks. Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, I love this term, shifting social protocol, because that is essentially what it is. And then it becomes the question of when is it virtuous and when isn't it virtuous to, as you say, you know, let certain things slide, because, you know, for Aristotle, the virtuous friend would not necessarily be friend in sort of what we're thinking about. It would be like Aristotle being a mentor to Alexander the Great or something like that, right? So there's room for mentorship, but there the protocol would be holding people accountable. And when you hold people accountable, you're not necessarily letting social mores go and you know, having a shifting social protocol, as you say, in terms of reducing politeness or so on, but you're actually taking it upon yourself to uphold certain principles. And so as people in our contemporary culture, as people tend to get closer and closer, as you're saying, they let these protocols slide away, so they're actually more accepting of BS from each other than is perhaps healthy in our society. And you kind of, people tend to, or they seem to push down inside of their psychology irritation that they actually feel with the friend, because the more you're friends, the more you're supposed to tolerate from your friend, right? Which can lead to some pretty unhealthy stuff. And now you have things on Facebook with like, don't like, unfollow but remain friends kind of stuff. It's just...
It's a protocol, so to speak.
Yeah, that's definitely shifting social protocol. And, you know, if you've done this, how do you get it back? How do you follow their thing back again, or can you? And, stuff like this. I mean, it's just... It's very different, but my feeling is that the closer people get, the farther they get away, because they're either falsely assuming that they have the consent to hold people accountable to things, or they completely give up any kind of accountability whatsoever, and they unfollow them on Twitter, or they unfollow them on Facebook or whatever, and stuff like that. I mean, there's no clear picture, but what I think is so exciting is what we started talking about, really, is that you now have new ways to connect with people. You can assemble with them differently. And assemblage was a term that the French philosopher, and my pronunciation of his last name is not so good, but Gilles Deleuze, he talked a lot about assemblage. So he would say that when your body is in a movie theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's assembled. It's not just It's not just that it's assembled with the seat that you're sitting in. It's assembled with the screen. It's assembled with the projector, and you become a kind of unit that works together as you're sitting in that theater. And so, when we are now talking on this Google Hangout, we're assembled in a certain way that's completely different than the way we would be assembled at that room where we were eating together at the Polyglot gathering. Right? This is a completely different kind of assemblage, and it enables a completely different kind of discourse, right? Than a random meeting. And so, yeah, it's fascinating stuff. No real conclusion, but there is a conclusion, and I would say that the hypothetical consent that I could take with you, or that you could take with me, is very, very limited in this assemblage that we're in right now. Because of the nature of the technology, we're actually at a much more virtuous level because things are timed, for example, things are focused and directed on a conversation that has a temporal form, a temporal shape that doesn't necessarily happen at something like the Polyglot gathering where we're having lunch, but we're going to bump into each other, half an hour later, then we're going to be like, are we going to talk again or are we not? Like all this kind of stuff. So it's totally a new character to relationships online, and in a way they can be much more authentic, I think.
Well, to be honest, I have to share that this is, during my 29 years on this planet, this is the deepest conversation about friendship that I've had. I've tried to impose it on my friends, so to speak. Well, with my friends, but then they don't think about friendship in such abstract way like we are talking about right now. So I'm just fascinated. I'm just sort of it's just fascinating to. Well, I think it's just in general to connect with someone who think about subjects so deeply on for example, learning, or now on friendship that I just discover. Thanks to my sort of random message template. I think it's working.
Well, I think that we all do think of friendship deeply. It's just that we don't necessarily think about the fact that we're thinking about friendship. But
okay.
Like every movie we watch has some kind of friendship involved in it. Every TV show, every series, it's all premised on friendship. Even the absence of friendship is characterized by friendship, right? If you're alone and you don't have anybody, that aloneness, that sense of aloneness, is completely shaped by the sense or the lack of sense of what friendship can be, and pretty much everybody has had some kind of experience of friendship or sees a representation of it in media or in a novel. So I think it's pretty impossible not to think about friendship. It's everywhere.
Yeah, but then to be fair, you are so far in my life, you're sort of talking at it at such an abstract level. I've never met anyone before. Well, as we said, now we've got technology, and to be honest, it is a bit also of just synchronicity. Is that the word? I forgot the word, but it's just. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I didn't know that you did your PhD in friendship.
So yeah, like a coincidence. Or
in any of the podcast or
serendipity, probably.
Yes, word. Yeah, serendipity. Yeah. So I'm mindful that you have an appointment in about 20 minutes time. So do you mind if we sort of just talk for another 10-15 minutes? Is that okay? And then we'll wrap up.
Sounds good.
Okay. So just to, if you allow me, just let me just share one thing about just sort of from our two formulation of friendship. Is one thing that I'm continuously learning is each one assumption, each one's theory about friendship and the accepted total protocol or whatever assumption that can be consented to. Wow, it's not a sentence that I'm used to taking. But anyway, so the consent, the things that we can give consent to at a certain level of friendship, they can be understood very differently by people who are in a friendship. So, and then from an incident a few weeks ago with someone, with a friend, for lack of a better term, that I met last summer, we just sort of made me realize that sometimes it's an element of friendship, but it is also quite dangerous to assume that our understanding of social protocol for friendship at a particular level can be very different of the understanding from the other person. Do you agree, or what is your thoughts? And then one point for personal development is just to sort of make that more aware, to have a higher level of awareness of it. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we need to learn how to do to be ethical people in the world. Is to develop an ability to, if not read the intentions and the feelings of others, find ways, eloquent ways, to just ask people what they're thinking based on what we're thinking. So, and there's different ways to do that. You could just be direct. If you have an inkling that someone is feeling a particular way, you can just ask them. Or if you have no idea what they're thinking about, you can ask them as well. Or you can study things like unconscious communication, which is very fascinating. It's not bulletproof or anything like that, but there are certain ways that you can elicit the feelings of people without them really knowing that that's what you're doing. So, for example, you can get people to tell you stories, and often their stories will encode their feelings about what they're thinking. And again, there's a little bit of caution there because it can be a bit woo-woo, but a very good example of being able to listen to what people are saying happened once when my wife at the time came home from shopping one time, and I was watching movies. I was a film professor at the time, so that was my job. And I had a movie playing, and she came in burdened by all these grocery bags, and she said, "I was at the grocery store, and you just wouldn't believe there was this man with his daughter, and he was just sitting there. He was standing reading the magazines while his daughter, all on her own, was putting the groceries from the grocery cart onto the conveyor, or the conveyor belt thing, the belt, to go towards the cashier. And I couldn't believe it. He was just letting her do all the work, right? Now, why is she telling me this story while I'm watching a movie? She's giving me a metaphorical story to convey her irritation that I am sitting there watching a movie and not helping her bring in the groceries, right? And it was her way of just saying, help me with the groceries. But she just didn't just say it out loud directly. She encoded it in a story. And luckily, I had done a lot of work in learning to listen to what people are saying. And so I got up and I said, you know what, I'm sorry, hold on, let me help you, you know? And but previous in my life, I probably would have just been like, yeah, that sucks. What a jerk that guy was. But if you start to listen to people, you'll hear that the selections, and you'll do it too. I notice it often myself. I'll start telling people a story, and in that story will be what I'm unconsciously feeling, right? And so you learn a lot about yourself when you start to learn to read what other people are saying and what you're saying. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be 100% correct, but it gives you a basis upon which to ethically engage with people and just ask them, you know? And they may deny it. They may say, no, I wasn't irritated that you were watching the movie in that particular case, but you know what I'm trying to get at? It's just I think a higher level of engaging with people and just being honest and ethical with them when you hear those kinds of things. But you do have to train to hear them.
Yeah.
And be prepared to get it wrong and look like a moron. But it's also very important when you hear it in yourself, when you hear the stories that you're telling and how that they are comments. They're literally encoding your true unconscious feelings.
So the lesson to the listener, just sort of listen to the messages which may not be so apparent at the surface level to sort of improve our relationship with people around us. Is that one way to phrase it?
Yeah, basically. That's
Okay. So on the topic of friendship, we have talked about quite a long time. So in the last 5-7 minutes, well, 5 to 8 minutes. So just to bring it back to language learning, so how do you feel that we can, because at the end of the day, language is about communication, and communication is only meaningful with another human being. Well, I suppose some people can say that they can communicate to trees or communicate to animals, but for the purpose of this recording, we are talking about communication with people, human beings. Okay, so how do you feel that, for example, like with our language partners or with local people when we are traveling, how do you feel that we can sort of develop better relationship? Do you have any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think the trick is just to find people with whom you want to speak and learn how to speak those things that you want to speak. And that has always been my challenge. Is like my German is very developed now, but there's hardly anybody I want to speak to. So then I have to actually go out and cultivate opportunities to speak on topics that I'm really interested in. So going talk about movies. Getting out of my comfort zone. At the end of October, there's an entrepreneurial summit that's all in German, so I'm going to go to that. Not just to speak more German, but also just to get out and meet people that are also, self-employed and have their own businesses, because that's good as well. And I've never done that with people in German. And in Spanish, if I want to go and talk to people, I don't want to go and talk to random people at one of these speakeasy multi-language things, because they'll just be random discussions, small talk with people I'm almost certainly not going to connect with, and I don't think that's the right way to get better at Spanish, is just to go talk Spanish for the sake of speaking Spanish. What I need to do is go find some heavy metal guys and speak Spanish with them, or go to a Spanish entrepreneurial thing, or go to a Spanish reading where people are reading poetry, which I'm interested in, or go to a Spanish movie club, or whatever, so that there's an actual dedicated, direct focus where it's not just random talking for the sake of talking kind of thing,
Yeah, I do feel the same feeling when I go to polyglot gathering. No, when I go to polyglot gathering, when I go to polyglot club in Paris, sometimes it's like, what to talk about? I mean, sometimes I sort of prepare a list of 20 random questions just so I can have something to talk about. But and then sometimes at the end of it, like, why did I say that?
Yeah.
Practice, but it can be a bit empty. So yeah, one way to reiterate this to our listener will be, simply identify our passion and then sort of integrate that with our language learning, so find people with similar interests, basically. And so now I've got some plugs to my two challenges that two communities that I'm starting. One of them that is called the LevelUpChallenge, where language lovers can get together to work on a non-language goal, because there are many language challenges out there already, such as the L1 challenge that we talked about, and then such as Jimmy Metivier starting one, and the lingua franca, etc. But then, so then to work on, for example, I don't know, social skill, or how to develop our social awareness and then we can sort of take a mini habit and we can track that with other people. So if you are interested, I obviously welcome you. So if you have any goal, I'll let you think about it. If you have any goal that you want to improve on, relationship or even like fitness, for example, we've got some people tracking doing exercise, some people track on entrepreneurial things, such as myself. I'm tracking the amount of time that I spend on marketing and I spend on social media interactions, etc. And then yeah, just get a support. So basically like LevelUpChallenge, but for non-language goals. But then one of the binding factors in the group is that we do share a similar interest, and that is languages. Although the individual goals can be quite different, but so it's sort of quite a niche community that I am starting. It is completely free for the first, at least for the first few months, and then I strongly welcome you to join it. And then the second plug is that it's something called the 3-hour challenge, 3-hour language challenge. It's another Facebook group that I've started. Is what I found in the other language challenges group is that it's not very conducive to setting very specific mini goals and then to master a topic before moving on. And then, for example, when I was doing my lessons with LevelUpChallenge, is that I sort of feel I just sort of sometimes had lessons without a very clear goal and clear focus, and just sometimes just sort of speaking for the sake of speaking. And then at the end of the day, I have never really mastered any particular topic. So in a way, the LevelUpChallenge was based from the Anthony Metivier talk on the pony knot that you may have heard about. Did you hear that? Did you watch that video?
Probably not. No.
Okay, I'll add it to the link, and it's quite fascinating. So my language challenge is based on topic-based fluency. So my idea is that in a very short period of time, with the right amount of focus and with a community support, we can actually pick a very specific topic and we can actually master it in 3 hours. For example, in 3 hours, it is definitely enough to master our self-introduction in a new language. And for people at an intermediate or advanced level, we can pick one specific topic that has been hindering us. For example, I don't know, for me, myself, I will do it in the 3-hour challenge suit myself, is to work on my subjunctive in French. I think it will just take me hours to actually master it, but then it's just sort of the resistance to it. And for example, one of the challenges I'm doing now is to learn French vegetables and fruits. I've lived in Paris for almost 2 years now, but I'm just not interested in cooking. It's just not motivating me I've just been not motivated to learn French names of fruit and vegetables. But then I feel that my experience of going to canteens and going to restaurants has been hugely hindered. So now I committed on this challenge to sort of work on my French, the vocabs for fruit and vegetables. And with this intention, for example, yesterday when I went to the salad bar, I could name all the French or the ingredients in my salad after just 1 hour of focus study. So then that is the one method that I'm passionate about, and then that I want to bring towards the world. And then obviously this project meaningful relationship is to think about strategies and tips to deepen the relationship with everyone around us. And so I invite you to join Anthony, I invite you to join any of the challenge that I mentioned. I will let you have a think about it. And so, yeah, it's coming up to the hour. Do you have any final thoughts on friendship and language learning, and then maybe about some of your memory products that you are working on that you want to sort of let the world know?
Well, if anybody wants to find me, my website is magneticmemorymethod.com, and I would just say, think more about friendship and go through your mind and try and remember every friend that you've ever had. It's a great memory exercise, and you'll be surprised by the things that you remember. And try and remember their homes. I got a podcast all about that as a great, easy to do mental exercise that will really show you how deep your memory is if you start with your first friend and go all the way up through your life. and try not just to remember your friend, but also remember what their homes were like, their siblings, what their parents were like, and it's really amazing when you do that. Get out a pen and a piece of paper and prepare for fun and amazement. It's a cool exercise.
So memory palaces plus friends. So two very deep emotional connections is the key to.
Yeah, and then if you want, you can use them all to help you memorize vegetables in French.
So so if I pick a one, oh my God, it's such a cute idea. So I will pick. Mindful of time, so 2-3 minutes left. So if I pick one childhood friend, if you are listening, Eric Chiu, that's you, and then I will think of we were like 12, and then I can still visualize his house because I was playing like PlayStation 1 or something at this time, shows my age. So then maybe I can then associate different vegetables in his house. Is that it?
Basically, yeah. I mean, why don't we make it the topic for a different episode of your show? So I have a few seconds here.
Great. So, this is the first episode for both Project Meaningful Relationship and Project Language Mastery. So it's still an experiment stage. So, but all the links will be in the description of the YouTube videos of the podcast. So thank you very much for your time, Anthony. I feel that we have actually deepened our friendship or the potential for it, and I hope to keep in touch with you for the next podcast and as well as generally in life.
Yeah. Let's talk more.
Great. So have a great weekend, and for those of you out there, make more friends, learn languages, and make the world a better place. Bye.
Bye. Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.